Welcome back to Philosophy and Ethics in Games, the series where I break down the choices in some of our favorite games and ask the tough questions to figure out what is right and what is wrong. I'm Josh Bearheart Hawk, and today we're exploring our newfound power over time with Max and Chloe in Life is Strange Chapter 2. In case you missed any of the previous episodes in the Philosophy and Ethics series, I've linked a playlist in the description below. As I continue to break down this and other games, I'll add new videos to the playlist so you can find them all in one place. After ending episode 1 with unexpected snow flurries, we find Max waking up the next morning to a text from Chloe, asking us to meet her at the diner in 40 minutes. We run into Kate in the shower room, and she asks us to return a book to her after letting us know how thankful she is for our intervention with David the day before. And, after a quick shower, we have our first big decision of the episode. Well, it kind of spirals into two big decisions. It turns out Kate's recent melancholy is related to a video that has been circulating for a couple of weeks that shows her doing some very wild things at a Vortex Club party. Victoria plasters the link to the video on the bathroom mirror while we're in the shower, and we have to decide to either leave it up or wipe it away before leaving the room. And the choice here seems pretty obvious. To be honest, this is one of those things that deserves a closer look and a couple of callouts, because the way these kids are acting isn't much different from the way a lot of teens in the real world act at times. I talked a bit in the last episode about high school and how each of us has our own perspective on that transformative time in our lives. But for some people, that stretch of adolescence can be a nightmare. Kids are ruthless, with many not knowing where to draw the line when it comes to what they see as harmless jokes. They will make fun of each other and tear each other down just to get a few laughs. And once someone becomes the center of attention, it can be almost impossible to get away from that spotlight. In this instance, Kate has been made fun of for a while for her religious beliefs, though she has been able to more or less handle most of that and continue to be her true self up to this point. For one reason or another, she decided to attend a Vortex Club party where, as we'll soon find out, she was drugged and wound up doing things she wouldn't normally do. These actions would be caught on camera, with the video being shared and causing people to start calling her names and saying that she's a hypocrite for all of her talk about being abstinent. First things first, as obviously wrong as the drugging is, the people who took and shared the video are almost worse in the overall picture. They made the conscious decision to pull out their phones when they saw one of their classmates acting odd, and then chose to share the video out as a way to tear down another human being. There is no scenario where that action is even remotely okay. But it isn't something that's confined to the game. We live in a world that exists almost more online than off, and videos of people doing crazy or irresponsible things go viral all the time. The first thing most people do when they see something unexpected happening is pull out their phone and start recording, even in situations where they should be helping someone rather than filming them. If someone would have stepped in and helped Kate, pulled her out of an obviously bad situation instead of recording her transgressions and posting them for all to see, things might have turned out much differently than they do at the end of the episode. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. After wiping the mirror clean, we head back to Max's room and discover that Victoria isn't the only one who enjoys writing things on walls. Nathan Prescott is still angry that we told on him for having a gun in the bathroom, and he apparently broke into our room to make his displeasure known. This is yet more evidence of how unhinged and juvenile he is, but it's also something that we'll have to deal with later, as we still have to return Kate's book to her and head out to see Chloe. And returning Kate's book is where we face the second big choice of the episode, as she explains what happened at the party and asks us whether we think she should go to the police. Before we make that choice, I want to point out something that really makes my blood boil about this situation. Kate mentions that she's worried about people in her church seeing the video, because she knows how they'll react when they see it, and she doesn't want to bear that kind of shame. And that kind of thing is just so wrong. She shouldn't need to worry like that, and the fact that she does tells us a lot about her church and the people in it. Religion doesn't come up often in these videos, as I don't have a ton of reason to talk about it. But in this instance, it is kind of important to bring up. As someone who was raised in a pretty fundamentalist church, I can understand why Kate would be worried, as, in my experience, a lot of dedicated, church-going types can be very judgy. They'll stick to their holier-than-thou ideas and act like they are better than others despite the teachings their church might espouse. Now, to be fair, this isn't all churches or even all religious-minded people. But there are a lot of people out there that would shame Kate for her actions and even blame her for what happened. They might say she shouldn't have gone to the party in the first place, that she quote-unquote got what she deserved for hanging out with the wrong crowd. Those people are demonstrably, categorically wrong in every way. Kate is a victim in this instance, and she does not deserve what happened to her. It does not matter what she was wearing, how she was acting, or who she was hanging out with. No one should ever be shamed for being the victim of a crime, and if the people in her church are the kind that would do that, then she needs to find a better church. Now, that being said, I also need to point out the horrible writing that comes with the decision Kate asks us to help her with, and the way it relates to the world that we know. The right answer should be to go to the police, but all too often the police aren't able to help much in these kind of situations. The legal system is set up in such a way that you need proof beyond a reasonable doubt, which protects the innocent, but also allows the guilty to walk free in instances where that kind of proof is so hard to get. In this situation, we can know with a high degree of certainty that Nathan Prescott likely drugged and did something to Kate. But there is no hard evidence of that, meaning that even if the authorities took her claims seriously, he would likely never face any real consequences. It's a catch-22 for victims because seeking the help they need means being subjected to further violations despite the low chance of any kind of justice being dealt out. But not seeking help means dealing with the trauma that they've gone through basically on their own. There's no good answer here, but the best possible thing we could do is to look for proof and to be the best possible friend to Kate that we can be. But that's where the writing here is probably the worst we've seen to this point in the game, as choosing that option leans into blaming the victim. Where we should be reassuring Kate and standing by her side, we instead tell her that no one will believe her and that she should just stay quiet and hope for the best. This was probably the closest I've come so far to quitting the game and walking away, because it is just such a bad way to frame things. Going to the police might not get Kate justice or be the best choice, but there are other options out there for victims of this kind of crime, and we should have had the chance to help Kate in other ways. And in case you or someone you know has gone through or is going through something similar, I'll share a link below to resources that can help. It's important to reach out to someone that you can trust and have people there to just listen, if nothing else, because you shouldn't have to go through these kind of things alone. Moving on, we head out of the dorm and make our way to meet Chloe at the Two Whales Diner, a diner her mom, Joyce, has been working at for years apparently. And though Chloe is running late, Joyce is there to greet us with coffee and conversation. And that conversation turns quickly to the events of the prior day, where Chloe's stepfather berated her and hit her as we hid in the closet. Joyce defends David's actions, but in reality there is no real defense for him. We'll be talking more about David when the time comes, but for now, we'll just leave it at that. Chloe finally arrives and she's excited to talk about Max's power to rewind time, being the only other person that Max has told about the ability. She decides to test the rewind power, and the first thing we have to do is tell her what is in her pockets. After looking at the contents and rewinding time, of course. I didn't pay very close attention, but somehow I still managed to get everything right. But that one little test wasn't quite enough, and Max has to predict everything that's going to happen in the diner in the next couple of minutes before Chloe finally buys that the power is real without any doubts. This is smart on Chloe's part, as she's doing her due diligence before believing something so extraordinary, and we could all learn a thing or two from her. But that level of skepticism is about the brightest idea Chloe has here, as she insists on using the power to have some fun as soon as she's sure it's real. As tempting as it would be to use a power like that in many different circumstances, it wouldn't be smart to play around with it. For one thing, without knowing more about how it works, there could be unforeseen consequences that you would want to avoid. Maybe the rewind only affects the world around Max, leaving her untouched. As unimportant as that sounds, she could find out that rewinding leaves her aging while others go backward and make for some really awkward issues when she's 20 years older than she should be in everyone else's eyes. There could also be other impacts to her health or to the world around her that she just hasn't seen yet. Taking the risk of using the power on a consistent basis without knowing the cost is a really bad idea. She also has no idea if the power she has is permanent or some kind of weird fluke. It could just stop working at random, leaving her stuck with whatever choice she made last, even as she assumed that she would have the ability to rewind. And that's one big reason they shouldn't be testing it, or even really using it. Without any rhyme or reason to the power, and without knowing its limitations or even how long it will last, Max could become dependent on it and use it as a crutch so she doesn't ever have to improve herself or even really try to get things right. Then, if it just goes away as quick as it came, she would be stuck in whatever position she'd put herself in with no way to undo things. A good case in point involves the test that Chloe sets up next. The pair head to Chloe's hangout spot, an old junkyard outside of town full of scrapped cars and years of trash. Chloe has Max gather some bottles so they can set up a shooting range to use the gun that she stole from her stepdad to test the rewind ability. This whole thing is really a way for Max to get a little more insight into the relationship between Chloe and Rachel, with a big area set aside to show us what their relationship was like, but for now, that's not really important. After gathering some bottles, Chloe proceeds to shoot a couple of them before pushing Max to give her some ideas for trick shots. There are several options to pick from, but there's one in particular that highlights my point about the risk. If Max tells Chloe to shoot the bumper of the car above the bottles, the bullet will ricochet back and hit Chloe in the chest, causing her to collapse to her knees and possibly killing her if Max isn't able to rewind. If her ability had chosen that moment to fail, Chloe would be dead. As it is, we are able to rewind and the moment is seemingly forgotten, though it really shouldn't be. Max should have stopped things and told Chloe what happened, pointed out the risk that they were taking, and maybe learned a lesson here. Why risk another shot causing harm that you might not be able to take back? But the possibility of losing her powers isn't the only problem, as the final rewind Max does here seemingly gives her a nosebleed and causes her to pass out. To be fair, there isn't anything definitively linking the bloody nose to the rewind ability, but there does seem to be a correlation between the two things, as she experienced a similar reaction when testing her powers at the diner. After a brief flash of the tornado, Max wakes up in Chloe's arms as her friend had panicked and carried her over to sit on the hood of a car until the issue passed. Just as she's recovering, a man Chloe seems to know pretty well, Frank, shows up to put a damper on the day by demanding Chloe pay some money that she owes him. As he's pulling a knife on Chloe, the pair look over to see Max pointing the gun at Frank, and we have a choice to make. We can either shoot Frank or put the gun down. Just acting on instinct, my first reaction was to pull the trigger. But that doesn't really work out very well, as the gun doesn't have any bullets loaded, and Frank is more annoyed that we tried to shoot him than anything else. As he leaves, he threatens to remember the fact that we almost shot him, and I was actually worried that decision could come back to haunt us in a bad way. So, I wound up rewinding and choosing to lower the gun. This action goes against my desire to limit the use of the rewind, but all I could think of at the time was how I wanted to minimize any future risk to either Max or Chloe, and being on the bad side of what appears to be a drug dealer doesn't seem like the best move. Of course, not even trying to shoot him leaves him walking away with Chloe's gun and potentially raising the risk in some other way later. But without some way to predict the future and having no third option, that's how I ended things. Chloe wasn't exactly thrilled, but she seemed to at least understand somewhat. And before long, the two girls were walking along the railroad tracks and chatting about the situation and life in Arcadia Bay. But even that serene moment winds up becoming way more than they expected, when Chloe's leg gets stuck in the tracks as a train barrels toward them, and Max has to work quickly to free her friend. Thankfully, and with only a couple of rewinds, I was able to get the track to open up and free Chloe just in time as we witness a reminder of why it's never a good idea to play near railroad tracks. After having enough excitement to fill the entire day over the course of one morning, Chloe drops Max off back at school, and we have the chance to walk around and chat with a few people before we have to be in class. Most of these interactions add little tidbits to the story in their own way, but one I really want to focus on is the argument we see between Kate and Mr. Jefferson. We aren't able to talk to Kate here, but we can follow up with Mr. Jefferson and find out just how much of a shitbag he truly is, as he discloses his opinion that Kate might have brought all of the bullying on herself for being the target of a viral video. He also alludes a couple of times to how Max isn't believed when she reports things, as if she's some kind of a habitual liar. Both Mr. Jefferson and the principal act like Max reporting Nathan and subsequently mentioning the confrontation she witnessed between the security guard and Kate is the final straw in some pattern that we are so far unaware of. It really makes me question if anyone in this school is competent enough to be running a facility full of teenagers, or even one for adults for that matter. But the conversation with Mr. Jefferson is cut short when he gets a phone call that is apparently more important than the concerns of his students, and we wind up making our way into the classroom in time to catch the security guard taking photos of Kate in the courtyard as she makes her way toward the dorms. Honestly, the whole situation with the teacher, the principal, and the security guard is just so over the top at this point and so frustrating to watch. None of the adults seem to know how to handle themselves, and the politics of dealing with Nathan Prescott and the Vortex Club leave me missing the simplicity of my own high school days. We barely get the chance to get into photography class though, before we have another dramatic interruption in the form of one of the other students popping in to tell us that something is going down at the girls' dorm. Based on what all has happened in this episode, I assumed there was something to do with Kate, but I wouldn't have guessed how things would play out here. It's raining, and a crowd of students has gathered in the courtyard outside of the girls' dormitory as Kate stands atop the building, threatening to jump. But it isn't a threat for long, and she leaps just as we round the corner. Turning back time only works temporarily in this situation, as we can only get her back up to the top before time starts and she jumps again. But then, something odd happens. Through what I can only assume is sheer force of will, Max is able to basically stop time in its tracks long enough to make her way to the rooftop. But the effort required to do this seems to have broken her rewind power, at least for the moment. This is the first time in the game where we have some choices to make and no way to go back and do them over, bringing to life the discussion we had earlier about what might happen if the powers just stopped working at the worst possible moment. And this could have been a great moment, a moment to show how the choices to this point mattered and how Max can actually rely on herself more than she realizes. But it kind of ruined a big portion of the game for me. See, up to now, we've had several chances to either interact with Kate and be a good friend, or ignore her. At every chance, I've taken the time to talk to her and to try to show her someone cared, including answering the phone when she called while I was out with Chloe, and talking to her in class and in the dorms. I've tried to be the best friend I could be, and now that relationship should pay off in some way. So many times we hear about people who have taken their own life, and how if there had just been someone, a friend or family member or even a stranger, who'd taken the time to reach out and talk to them, they might have made a different decision. And that could have been reinforced here, but it wasn't. The only thing that matters in this interaction with Kate is if you make the correct dialogue decisions in the moment, with those decisions being based on a close inspection of the items in her room when you go to return her book to her. And this is just absolutely the wrong message to send. Studies and reflection from people who have attempted to take their own lives show that just having someone reach out can make all the difference. For many who are contemplating the act, just knowing that there is someone who truly cares can be enough to push them to get help, to give them the will to keep going when all hope seems lost. It's not foolproof, nothing is, but the fact of the matter is that in this situation, the devs have gamified this very real issue that so many people deal with, and I'm not on board for it. This was the second time in this episode that I very nearly walked away from the game. But I'm not going to do that, because we can learn things from these writing mistakes. We can learn how important it is to check on your friends and family, to reach out to someone you think might be having a hard time, or even to someone who seems like they have it all together, and just asking, "Are you doing all right?" We can learn how to pay attention to strangers, or even acquaintances, and think about how our actions could impact them and the wider world. We can learn how something that might seem like a little joke to us could be incredibly hurtful to someone else, and make the decision to lift others up instead of tearing them down. We don't have the ability to rewind time, meaning our actions and words can't be taken back. We need to be careful with what we say and do, and think about how those things will hurt or help others around us. As if to spit in our face, the very next scene takes place in the principal's office, and we're tasked with placing the blame for what happened to Kate. We're able to rewind and put the onus on either David, Nathan, or Mr. Jefferson. And I chose to call out Jefferson for the way he reacted to Kate right before she stormed off to the roof of the dorm. But the truth is that the blame lies with every single person in that school. From the person who took and posted the video, to everyone who watched it and laughed either behind her back or to her face, to the people who made fun of her for her beliefs and way of life, all the staff that stood by as those things went on, and especially Nathan Prescott, who will get his just desserts in the end. We close out the episode on another odd occurrence as a solar eclipse takes place, and next week we'll be unearthing a lot of new information and finding out one of the biggest drawbacks to changing the past. If you liked the video, make sure to leave a thumbs up so the algorithm knows it was worth your time, and subscribe to Lost in Games so you don't miss out on any of the videos in the Philosophy and Ethics in Games series. If you want to help support the channel in other ways, I've got channel memberships and a Patreon, and joining either of those gets you early access to videos and your name on the screen. That's all I've got for this one. I want to thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.